Oh, I just discovered a new iOS 11 feature.
What is it?
When you open the dock and you put a finger on one of the apps on the dock, then you have the recent documents that you used it.
It's quite confusing how this works. Like if you tap the app, you open it. If you press it for a bit longer, you show for some apps like the recents thing.
Yeah.
Then if you press it just a little bit longer, you can start dragging it and also like moving it as a window to another app. And then if you press it even longer, then you enter the... It's just like, it has too many levels.
We live in the future. We talked about it. When you live in the future, you suffer.
You suffer?
Suffer. Always.
My brother.
Of course.
Mother.
Of course.
You start. Okay, are we ready? Wait
for it. Go. Hello, I'm Michael.
I'm Radek.
And this is The Podcast.
A sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books we read and want to share with you.
As well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day, working on our app, Nozbe.
Or whatever else comes to mind.
I always like saying The Podcast.
Yeah, you do, but don't do that. No.
Stop. I really like it. It's fun.
No.
Come on, give me some.
No.
So anyway, because in every show, if you've been a good listener, you've noticed that in every show we switch. So that's why every other show I get to say The Podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So let's not extend this episode too much because we've just did it. We just did it last time with 65 minutes of iPad only chat.
Yeah. We apologize.
We apologize. We are both enjoying our new iPads right now and playing with them and having fun and testing iOS 11. So this is good. But today we won't talk about any of that.
Yeah, we want to get back to books and
some cool ideas.
The sounding board for interesting ideas and insights.
Exactly.
Because we haven't done that in a while. Like I didn't know about you. I had a bit of a kind of slower time in my life the past few months with reading books, and I was behind with reading. But there's been one book I read not long ago that I was recommended to you, and that I think inspired both of us and just fits perfectly to both our personalities, I think, and the way we look at life, and also fits into previous discussions on the show with books like Ego is the Enemy, and just many ways in which we think about life. We discussed monkey brain optimization, as we call them, like ways, like psychological tricks to like really take advantage of our capability to like really make it easier for us to do what we really want to do. And so today we'll talk about Stoicism.
Stoicism, baby. Yeah. Today we'll talk about the book called A Guide to the Good Life, right?
That's right.
Okay, so the book is about Stoicism and about how a modern person like ourselves should look at Stoicism, what they could take away from Stoicism, or which lessons they could apply in their life, and and how to have a good life, which is actually the question of like the question, how to have a good life, and how to have how to have more tranquil life, be more calm, and also be more sane, and and just go through life with more happiness.
Right. So A Guide to the Good Life is, I would say, like a modern guide to Stoicism, a very approachable one. It covers some history of philosophy and whatnot, but it mostly focuses on the meat, the core ideas of Stoicism, especially Roman Stoicism, that are applicable and relevant to the modern reader. And it was surprising to me at first. Like I had some exposure to these ideas largely because of David Heinemeier Hansson, who would mention it many times on Twitter and on podcasts. But in general, like it sounds like something that's not something I would be concerned with. Like Stoicism, it sounds like some boring old thing that is just like not relevant, something outdated, something not relevant to the modern reader. But I think, like, again, I didn't realize because I didn't look into it far enough. But I think the part that's really interesting about Stoicism is that a lot of it are like a lot of ideas, a lot of what Stoicism is, I would put as strategies or psychological tricks to achieving tranquility, which is, I guess, something we should define.
Yeah. So when you recommended me this book, I was also skeptical. I was like, I don't want to read about some philosophy and, some boring things. So I was also skeptical. But the good thing about, us recommending each other books and anyway, searching for new books and new inspirations is that sometimes you do have to leave your comfy box and stop reading yet another productivity book and read something totally, something which you think would be completely different. And in retrospect, it's not that different, and it has lots to do with our lives.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with productivity in the broadest sense, which is like what we're often interested in. Like a lot of the ideas we discuss, like when we talked about essentialism, for example, like it's like you could call it like a productivity book, but it's like in the broadest sense only. Like it's applicable to life in general. And with Stoicism, like it doesn't help that I guess it's like widely misunderstood to the point like there's this phrase like the word stoical, which can be deceiving. Stoics were not necessarily stoical, as in emotionally repressed. The goal of Stoicism is to live a good life, maximizing the experience of tranquility. And tranquility is this word for absence of negative emotions like grief, anger, and whatnot, and the positive of positive emotions. So not quite like not like happiness, but happiness is this loaded word that suggests this kind of high state of energy, and tranquility is about this calm, subtle joy of life, a positive state, but like almost a neutral one. And the main idea of Stoicism is through practice of Stoicism, or as in the modern phrasing, I guess, through the psychological tricks of Stoicism, to remove as much negative emotions from your life and enjoy the joys of life, which is sounds like a good philosophy of life.
Yeah, but the thing is that on one side you were saying remove negative emotions, but on the other hand, we will start with the first premise of the book, also with the first idea from the book. I think the biggest idea from the book is to actually attract negative emotions in a way. So one of the first concepts I would like to share from the book is the negative visualization. So this concept is means that to appreciate what you have, you should entertain a thought or a situation where you don't have it anymore. So for example, you have a great house. Like think about it, how it would be if you wouldn't have this house, or you have a great car, or you have a great family, you have children. I mean, whatever is that you appreciate. You have an iPad, right? We have the new iPads.
Wow.
Well, that's for you easy. For you, it's easy. For me, it's not that easy. Well, anyway, so what I'm saying is that you have a thing and you like it, but to appreciate it more, entertain the thought of not having it, or having it taken away from you. So. And this is really powerful. This is very powerful because, like, I haven't been thinking like this before. I haven't. I mean, have you?
Not really. No, not before. I was previously exposed to this idea, but only in the context of Stoicism. And I guess the idea behind that is most of the people here listening to this are, in the grand scheme of things, extremely privileged, right?
Extremely fortunate. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we live a dream life. Like even in misfortune, like bad stuff happens. Sometimes you lose a job or whatever. Things happen to you in life. But in the grand scheme of things, few people throughout the whole history of human life had it as good as we do. But it can be difficult to appreciate it, right? Like there's this
because everyone has that, right? Everyone has that. So
yeah,
it seems common. It seems obvious. So like, why appreciate it? Like, yeah, I have house. Yeah, I have computer. Yeah, I have family. Yeah, I'm healthy. Whatever, right?
Yeah, and it's not just that most people have it, but you've had it for a while and you adapt to it, and you like. This just the hedonic adaptation. It prevents us from appreciating what we have. Like the simplest way to be happy is to be happy with what you already have, and most of us, again, listening to this show, have quite a lot to be happy for. But it's so hard to appreciate it. We take for granted what we already have because we already have it, right? And most of us too, over the span of a lifetime, like we live a life of our past dreams, right? Like. You have a job, house, car, spouse, iPad you once dreamed of, right? but once you get it, it's just you move on to even grander goals and
to the next thing,
and you forgot how good it is. And it's just like that's one of the most common kind of broad patterns of what takes away this tranquility from our life. Like we worry about this and that, and we don't stop to appreciate, because it's really hard to appreciate all the things that we already have. And negative visualization is this technique, is this psychological trick to bring back this ability to experience joy from this.
Yeah, and there are two great stories in this book, which I two examples which I really liked. So the first one was the fact that the kids, very often, if you give them a toy, they love it. Like, it was the best toy ever, right? And they play with the toy. Then they just get bored with the toy, but then you put it back somewhere. They don't see it anymore. And you give them back the toy like after a week or 2 weeks, and they're like, whoa, it's the best toy ever again, right? So they don't, like, the kids enjoy things more than adults because they don't think anything for granted. They don't take things for granted. They just, they just enjoy things as they come, right? So they have this like more inner joy than the adults who just take things for granted very easily. And that was the first idea. And the second idea, which I found really powerful, is this. Is saying grace before a meal. So I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, and I think I'm going to church every Sunday. I think I'm pretty faithful, but I don't really pray before food. Like, I don't have this habit. I mean, it wasn't in my family that much, but actually after reading this book, I started practicing it more, because what I realized is that when you pray or say grace before food, you like appreciate the fact that we have this food here, that this tasty food is here, and we have this company here to share this food with. It's like you practice negative visualization in this moment. And when I realized that, it just took, like, it gave me a different meaning. Like right now, when I sit with my family and we say grace before the food, I'm just so instantly happy. Really, it's like a trick, I'm just instantly happy. I'm like, yeah, this is so great. We have this food. We have this company to share the food with. Wow, right? I never looked at that from this angle. And I loved it. I love it.
Can you explain in more detail, like, what does negative visualization mean? Like, how do you actually do it? Like, what does it mean to practice negative visualization?
Well, from what I understood from the book and from how I tried to do it, is the fact that what you do is you look at something that you really appreciate, or that that you have, and then you think, like, for quite a while, how life would be if this thing wouldn't be there, if this thing, person, this circumstance wouldn't be there, and you think how you would feel when it would be taken away from you. I think this is like, and you, like, you spend time on this. You spend time thinking how this would be, and then, like, from what I understand, you instantly, like, start appreciating that it's there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that's pretty close to my understanding. Like, the idea is to contemplate a bad thing happening, like reflect on a possible misfortune, and sort of come to terms with it. Like, just like you're saying, imagine life with, for example, the loss of your job, your career, your possessions, your health, friends, family, whatever, like anything that you want to practice negative visualization on, and kind of imagine what it's like and sort of accept it as if it was actually true, and see that, oh, okay, I could cope with it because I still have these other things, right? And then like by kind of playing this scenario in your head and sort of in this kind of simulation, you see that, you know, it wouldn't be that bad. Like you're still alive, right? And you get out of this reflective state and you realize that, oh, but I do have those things. So like if I could live with that, you know, what a joy it is to live when I do have those things.
Yeah, it's like, you know, this gradual, you know, appreciation of things, right? Like, for example, many people start appreciating their health when they lose it. So when they go to hospital or whatever. Like I had this problem when I was practicing for the last triathlon. I was practicing swimming a lot, and I got a small injury on my back, and I couldn't swim that well anymore, and it was hurting me. And not only swimming, but it was hurting me every day when I was moving my hand. And then I realized how good it was when I wasn't injured. You know, it's still fine. I'm still okay, but it was so great not to be injured, you know, be able to like function 100%. And, you know, so you start realizing that. So that's why this is so powerful. But it's, you know, it's sometimes too late to appreciate something when you just completely lose it. Like, because how bad it would be if I would be completely, you know, crippled for some reason, you know, then of course I will survive. But that's why negative visualization gives you this option to entertain a thought and a state of mind without the consequences of it, right? But then again, it gradually it helps you, you know, get back, like gain some perspective and come back. Because very often in our lives we get annoyed by stupid things, by really stupid things that don't really matter, and then this negative visualization technique again brings back your sanity. And then as I explained with this saying grace example, like right now, really, whenever we do that, I go subconsciously into this negative visualization mode by thinking how it would be like different if I wouldn't have that family to share this meal with, if I didn't have the meal. And, you know, so it's hard to think about it because we are used to having meals and not starving to death. So it's really hard to do it. But this idea of really appreciating it now and then you know, savoring the meal even more with this company, and then really putting the mobile phone out and just focusing on the company and on the meal, because it's another benefit. Then you start being focused on what's really important, because you don't want to lose it.
Yeah. What's interesting about negative visualization for me is that the benefit comes on multiple levels. Like by reflecting the bad things that could happen to you, on one hand, you prepare yourself, like you contemplate how life could be worse, and by that, like you see how you could lead it to become worse. So you get to prepare yourself such that the bad thing doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Then by entertaining those thoughts without them happening really, but by entertaining them, you sort of come to terms with the tragedy. At least that's the idea, that you kind of mentally try to come to terms with this life that's worse off. And because you've already like kind of practiced it, if the tragedy does happen, and some of the tragedies that Stoicism talks about, like the loss of your health and whatnot, like some of them are inevitable once you get to a certain older age, right? So you come to terms with the tragedy so that when or if it happens, it won't affect you as much as it would otherwise. And then on the third level, because it doesn't happen, you get what we discussed as kind of the primary maybe benefit, which is the internalization of how lucky you are and like the regaining of ability to experience joy of the life as it is.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and it takes practice, I think, because I mean, after I read the book, I started practicing it, but it's really hard, and it's pretty demanding. But on the other hand, I had like an immediate situation where last week we had to take our little one, our smallest child, to the hospital because she had bronchitis, and so a problem with lungs and breathing. And for a small child like that, you have to just put to the hospital right away. You cannot, cure her at home. And I don't want to lose my child, of course. I would never want to lose my child, but I don't know. For some reason, I appreciated this moment more. Because I read the book, because I already entertained some negative visualization sessions, let's call them, I was calmer. I would have normally been, freaked out, like completely freaked out, but I wasn't. Of course, I was nervous. I'm a parent. She's my the youngest, so it was hard for me. But for some reason, I think I was subconsciously saner. I was just more calm. But then it ties pretty well with the second thing. So with the second concept, with the concept of things that we can or cannot influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you call it?
The author called it the trichotomy of control.
Exactly. So trichotomy of control, meaning there are things that you can influence 100%.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that you cannot influence
at all,
and there are things that you can kind of influence. So you can exert some kind of influence, but you actually cannot influence the outcome of that, right?
Mm-hmm. So like you have some, all, or no control over things at all, which is like an obvious distinction.
Yeah, and there's this prayer for the alcoholics, right? Like, God, help me to just distinguish between the things that I have control and I don't. And I think it's pretty good if you think about it, because very often we freak out about things that we have no control over at all. So mm-hmm. this is stupid. Like, this is stupid right there. But then, of course, there are things that we have some control, but we think, or we trick ourselves, or we fool ourselves into thinking that we actually have 100% control over this, which is not mm-hmm. true. Over many things we have kind of control. And I really liked this concept of changing your goal. So, for example, there was this example of the tennis game, but whatever game. So if you're playing against someone, your goal would be to win, right? But instead of, but you cannot influence that, because things can happen. They can be lucky, or they can be luckier than you, or whatever. Like they can be things that you can be just worse off this day or whatever. So things, even if you're like a great person at whatever you're doing,
you can influence it, but you don't have control over it.
Exactly. So the thing is that if you internalize the goal and say, I'm going to perform to my best ability, mm-hmm. then it's a different goal. And if you did that, if you really done that, then you can be proud of yourself, because even if you lost, you said, okay, I did my best there. I lost fair and square. Okay, it's fine, because I did my best. But of course, it's easier said than done.
Right. So the trichotomy of control is kind of like an obvious distinction, like some, like all or no control over something at all. But I think having this mental model is quite useful, because like if you always explicitly think it in those terms, it's easier to like sort things through. So like you should concern yourself primarily with things you have complete control over, right? And like worrying about things you have no control over at all is like a waste of time. But the really clever trick is, most things in life that we have in front of ourselves, we have influence over, but no full control over. And if you set a goal, I will win this tennis match, or I will get a raise, then it's you kind of set yourself to it. But if it doesn't work and you fail, like it's just going to really, really hurt. It will destroy your tranquility, right? And like if you internalize the goal, if you like mentally set yourself to do your best to win this match, or do your best to like perform the best at work instead of I will get a raise. Like if you always put things in a way that you have complete control over, like doing your best, you do have complete control over, then it's not going to hurt as much if you fail, and you still you still have the high correlation between your internal goal and the external goal, right? Like if you do your best, then it's far more likely that you win, but you don't risk having this stress, this risk of just ruining your tranquility if you fail due to circumstances you could not have controlled.
Yeah, and when I was reading it, I realized, because that some of the athletes I admire, some of the athletes I really admire and respect, have been doing that for quite a while now. And I haven't been listening and paying attention, because the media, they are talking about, the championships, the wins, the points, the whatever, right? These kind of, external things that, as we discussed, you cannot control. But I remember vividly, like there was a time when in Poland we had Małysz-Omania, which means Adam Małysz, our ski jumping champion, was ski jumping, and he was fantastic. He was just great. And like every Sunday we would watch ski jumping contests, and we would cheer him and everything. And whenever the media were speculating, is he going to win this time, or how far he's going to jump, or whatever. And we'll link to Adam Małysz in the to Wikipedia article about him, because you should learn about him. He's a fantastic guy. So anyway, they would ask him, so what's your plan for today? How far you want to jump today? And he would almost always say, no, well, I don't know. I just want to make 2 good jumps, and that was it. Like, he was really nice, but he would never, indulge in these conversations about points or championships or whatever. He would say, no, I'm here to just do good jumps. And I remember vividly in one of the championships, one of the competitions, because of problems with weather, they canceled one of the jumps. They just jumped once, and that's it. And it was over. Like the results were final from just the first jump. And he won. Mm-hmm. But you could see him. He was pissed. He just took his skis, and he was pissed because he prepared himself for another jump. He was supposed to jump, and he didn't jump. So he wasn't happy because he won. He was unhappy because he was supposed to do 2 good jumps, and he set up his goal was to do 2 good jumps, and the goal wasn't met. So he clearly internalized the other goal, not the goal of winning, because he won. But because the circumstances changed, it turned out that he doesn't have complete control over doing 2 jumps. Exactly. But it was fun to see. That's hard to predict. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. And another thing I found interesting is discussion on luxury, and that's again to be thought of in a broad sense, because again, in the grand scheme of things, most of us live in some degree of luxury compared to just 50 years ago. We have things that just were not possible before. Most of us live pretty well, and the book discussed like the risk of becoming a connoisseur, of acquiring a taste, right? Because like once you have the means, then you start acquiring a taste for delicacies. Again, like in the broadest sense, like some people, for example, just really love the best coffee, for example. Let's stick with this example. But the problem with that is acquiring a taste for the best means you won't be satisfied with simple things. Like you're in the pursuit of pleasure and not tranquility, but pleasure. You're making your life harder, because simple things no longer satisfy you, right? Like you crave for more and more, and that's kind of
that's kind of risky. Like again, like you don't have to imagine like true luxury in the sense most people consider today, like becoming, really rich and having a big mansion or whatever. Like even in the smaller things, like you acquire a taste for, and the best coffee ground in your home with the freshest beans made in your AeroPress, and that's fine. But the risk with doing those things is that, again, you're no longer satisfied with simple things. And even if you have the means for more, being accustomed to living a simple life has the benefit that the things you enjoy are easy to obtain. Like, again, like if you enjoy simple food and like, regular coffee or whatever,
it's there.
You don't get the best, but it's there everywhere. It's readily available everywhere. If you have, like, you can read about many like really rich people living in simple houses, and simple houses are easy to maintain. Are like simple life. Living a simple life is easier, simple, even if you can afford more.
So I have two thoughts on that. So first one is I have a good example is the fact I like traveling. I like traveling a lot, and I with my wife whenever we travel, we try to get the best hotels we can, the best places, Airbnb, the best ones we can afford, and we can enjoy our family there. So, and I realized that over the years, like our standard for accommodation changed to some better ones, right? Mm-hmm. But then again, on one hand, we are trying not to keep climbing. So like to just put ourselves like at some level and just don't go upper from there, or maybe once in a while just have a luxury, but then go back to our level. But on the other hand, also try to have every now and then a vacation much simpler. So with a very simple accommodation, or even a camping, something that is not as fancy as what we are used to. This way, you can, appreciate the simple things and also not be out of touch with simple things. Because I think this is also a risk that you stop being out of touch of how real people are living, right? of how really things work. And so I would say that we started doing that. So trying to maybe sometimes go a little bit higher, but usually stay on the same level. But also sometimes deliberately plan something lower standard, just to enjoy a simpler thing, less luxurious, maybe, I don't know, just simpler. And this way we don't lose, we don't lose touch.
Yeah. Or just like, you can imagine, it being summer vacation time. And if you're capable of totally enjoying just staying in your hometown, just at home, and like if that is something that brings you, if you're capable of being happy with that's also a good thing, right? Because like it's so easy to, once you have the means, to create this lifestyle for yourself, that you're like always traveling or always doing this or that, which you might lose that ability someday. And even if you don't, like you're saying, you're kind of losing touch, and the better things you have stop being better because you just get used to them.
On the other hand, what I'm not necessarily agreeing with the book is the fact that Stoics kind of try to, I don't know, kind of force you to try to be poor and try to be simple. On one hand, I think it's great. On the other hand, what I like about simplifying is this idea of having less things but of better quality, for example, and then appreciating them more. So, for example, I dramatically reduced the amount of clothing. I mean, the number of clothing items I have in my wardrobe. But now, with every shirt or polo shirt or pair of trousers that I wear, I can honestly say this is the best one. This is one of them, because I only have my favorite ones, and then I wear them down. At some point, I will just have to throw them away because they're just totally worn down. But this way, I really appreciate like fewer clothing, but really clothing that I like.
Wait, hold on. What do you mean by you said trying to make you poor? Like, what do you mean by that? I did not get that understanding at all.
I did. I thought that they just tell you that, actually what they want to say is that when you have too expensive things, then you start being dependent on them. And I can appreciate it. I can find it true that when you have expensive things, they can guide your decisions, or, because this is expensive, you don't want to, do something. But and I thought that they would tell you that, being rich is not, or appreciating the richness,
the luxury,
the pleasures, the luxury is not good. And again, from my understanding, I'm actually trying to simplify my life, have less items, but the ones I have, really love them. That's why my vouch, that we just discussed in the last episode, that if I like this iPad too much, I'm going to sell the other two iPads. Okay, this was a bad joke. But no, but what I'm saying is that really, for example, I simplified my wardrobe. I simplified lots of things, my shoes, like lots of things, that I have only the ones that I really care about, that I really like, then I appreciate them more. And when they're gone, they have served me well, I throw them away and then go for another ones.
I think your understanding of that part might be flawed, because that's not at all how I understood it. It's
okay.
Right in my notes from the book that a Stoic does not seek fortune. And I think the key here is seeking fortune. Because if you set your mind, your goals to becoming rich, to achieving luxury, it will just drive you in all sorts of directions which are incompatible with the pursuit of tranquility. However, it's still possible that a Stoic does achieve some level of fortune, of luxury, and in fact, the book detailed it quite well. How many most famous Stoics were actually important people, right? And that is okay to achieve that. Not necessarily to seek it. Seek in the sense that, again, that this becomes the center of your focus. But it's okay to achieve it in whatever means you do achieve it, as long as you don't cling to it, right? So that's that's also, I think, a lot of those things you have to take through a filter, a modern filter that in the times where this philosophy was developed, misfortune and a larger kind of scale of misfortune happened to a much larger extent. Like it's relatively unlikely that you become homeless, for example, right? And it's just and that used to be different in when this philosophy was developed. So it's worth kind of taking it through a filter that there are some basic things that in the grand scheme of things are like most humans did not have them, but there's some level that you're fairly confident that few things in life could deprive you of that, and so you do get accustomed to it, and that's fine. But then above a certain level, you might lose it. So clinging to it might, in the long run, make you miserable if you lose it. And in the short term, it will make you feel no different because you just take it for granted.
Okay, so it's more like, in the first chapter of my book, it's all about passion, where I wrote that when I was trying to run to start a startup, and my motivation was money. So I was seeking the money. I wanted to be rich with that thing that I was building. I failed because, it was wrong motivation. But in the moment I wanted to solve a real problem, then the revenue and everything else showed up as a consequence of me solving a real problem, and helping real people, instead of going for seeking the money, right?
Right, and so I think you're getting it right here, that you you achieved a pretty nice level of success, but that's in a sense like in spite of the fact that you didn't, I guess, seek it in a very direct way. Like, of course, it was always in your mind. You're a business owner. You have to care about revenue and whatnot, but it's not how you internalized your goals.
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of the key distinction here.
Okay, so we're actually Stoics here at Nosby, which is good.
Wow, we'll get better over time with these new thoughts from the book.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a few more things from the book, and some of them are actually related to, like speaking about Nosby, are related to productivity. So well, you'll learn more about it, I think, in the next one, because I think we should talk about these things a bit, longer, right?
Yeah, I think we should cut right about here, but I think this should be 2 parts. So probably next week we'll get back to the ideas from this book.
So there is your chance. You have a week to read the book. So get the book, read at least a part of it, and we'll get back to the book and the ideas from the book in the next one.